Hello, this is John Majori with Majori on Bowie, and this is the Majori on Bowie YouTube channel where I have a new interview every week that always has something to do with David Bowie. And for daily content, visit the blog www.majorionbowie.com where I have something new every single day that almost always has something to do with David Bowie. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Katie Silverman and Sandy Chila, who together are Queen Anne. Now, we're recording this interview in September 2025, and I mention this because I don't think I could get Queen Anne to come onto the show in 6 months from now. So I'm very excited to have them here. Now, I became aware of the band through their second single, which is a cover of David Bowie's Let's Dance. And I selected that for a feature in the blog called Cover of the Week. And I have to say, whenever I post Cover of the Week, inevitably there's somebody from the Bowie community that objects to the very concept of covering a Bowie song. Not in this case. The universal response that I've seen was incredible enthusiasm and an acknowledgement that this interpretation is a bridge between the past and the future. It's it's impossible to not like this cover of Let's Dance. It actually adds to Bowie's legacy. It's one of only three singles that has been released by Queen Anne at the time of this interview. The other two being Real Enough and Lexi Loves Me, and they're very compelling pieces of music that make me look forward, hopefully, to an album. I'm really excited to have Sandy and Katie with me. Sandy is a music industry veteran, and if Katie looks familiar, she's also an accomplished actress, a vocalist, and she's even an author. So, a very, very accomplished person. So thank you very much, Sandy, Katie. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks for
good
having us.
morning. So let's talk about Let's Dance first. And the first thing that I notice when I listen to your interpretation is that there's this almost Western style gallop. And I'm thinking, and it sounds perfect, but how do you hear Bowie's song and think, you know what it's missing? It's missing a Western style gallop.
That's funny you say that. I didn't really we didn't go into this thinking we got to make this a Western style gallop. But it started with this really kind of cool drum groove, and then I thought, we can put an acoustic double time acoustic guitar on paper. This shouldn't work. Double time acoustic on top of this, halftime drum and bass thing, but it just kind of really came together in such a cool way, and yeah, that's how. I guess we
Yeah.
can call that Western Gallop.
Well, yeah, it seems like something that's been missing for 42 years.
Look, I mean, the main thing is I really wanted people to be able to not necessarily dance hard, but I wanted them to bop a little bit.
Yeah.
Katie and I, we went into this going like, we can't really replicate Let's Dance in the sense that how people are feeling it, um, you know, the way Bowie did it. But I wanted to make sure that we can actually just get a little bit of a dance type element, but it had to be different. It had to be a different dance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, mission accomplished. So
Thanks.
how do you choose a 42-year-old song to be your second single?
I think it wasn't even so much because when we recorded we were not like, we need a second single, let's record this song. We had just been making a whole bunch of songs and something we'd been thinking about, like as a thing that we wanted to do and a thing we wanted to do at some point was a cover. And we were all over the place. We were thinking about doing a song by Cake. Like it was really all over the place. And just one of the songs that we kind of listened to when we were just like just so literally throwing out songs. Like what are songs that are on the one hand timeless, but also couldn't be released exactly the same way today. So it kind of pushes
Yeah,
us to do something different. And I think like Let's Dance, I was just like, oh, I can totally hear this as this like slowed down Americana ballad. And that doesn't necessarily mean like it's a good idea to do that to a song. Because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. But I think listening to the lyrics of Let's Dance, it was like, no, that is kind of that is kind of what this song is about or could be about. And I think I came back like a week later after I'd kind of like thrown that out there, and Sandy had done this insanely cool track that he kind of laid down with the, and like the second I heard the acoustic guitar on the opener, I was like, we have to do this. So I think we didn't, you know, maybe cake down the line, but we were pretty locked in on Bowie at that point.
Yeah, well, Cake, you do Cake, you're going to do a song that will sound completely new to most people, I think.
Mm.
Right, right.
Yeah. But so, many covers, not this one, but many covers have an appeal to nostalgia, which I feel is absent from this cover. And Katie, the song, Bowie released a song, well before you were born, so it can't be nostalgic for you. Um, what like how conscious are you of that when you're creating something new out of a source material that's fairly old?
I actually, there is a nostalgia for me, and I think for my generation, I would hope when people who hear that song, I think it's just a different nostalgia because for me, I wasn't listening to Let's Dance as a single when the album was coming out. I was listening to it as like this example of one of the, greatest songs, like of my parents'
Yeah.
generation and that had come before me. And it was like a song I was aware of growing up, already as a classic and as something that had been acknowledged as sort of this masterpiece. And so I think for me, the nostalgia isn't so much rooted in, that kind of firsthand experience of the song, but there's almost this like, you know, one of my earliest memories that's strong is my whole family crying when David Bowie passed. Like
Yeah.
that for me was the kind of a cornerstone of my musical world growing up. And so I think kind of, if the song sounds haunted rather than
Yes.
nostalgic, it's because it is, because I think that's sort of the place that Bowie occupies for his fans that are my age,
Mhm.
who grew up after him. Maybe that's a little, maybe that's a little esoteric, but that I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how it feels to me.
Well, it makes perfect sense. And I wasn't thinking about this coming into the interview, but the the album that was out when he passed away was Black Star, which is a really haunting album. Um, but Let's Dance, I think, when it came out in the 80s, it was a poppy song, right? It was a very accessible song. But when you look at the lyrics are a little more complicated. Did you become more aware of the lyrics being sort of strange and sort of darker than they sound if you just listen to the original release?
Yeah, I think so. And I think again, that's part of where, not having heard the song in its original context,
Yeah.
having it be something that I discovered, decades after the fact, kind of liberated me, I think, from the original assumptions that you would have had about the song. Because like going back and listening very like intentionally to Let's Dance, I think I had um kind of this like, I just like this a bit like the distance from it to kind of get curious about it and be like, okay, there are a few different things going on here because like aesthetically with this album, there's something violent happening and there's something about
Yeah.
consumerism and there's something about, let's dance for fear tonight is all,
Yes.
and I think like to me that was what really attracted me to the song because I never want to take a song and try to pull something out of it that's not there, you know what I mean? Just like impose my own thing onto it. But it was like this song really actually does kind of have this sort of darkness and complexity in it already. And it's a really cool sort of challenge to see like where can we tease that out so that it feels completely new, but it also doesn't feel like a betrayal of Bowie's vision or of the
Mm.
song itself.
Yeah. I have to say I've listened to Lexi Loves Me now twice as of this day, and I, the first time I heard it was different than the second time because I think sort of similarly, there's some lyrics in there that I'm going to have to think about more because it's almost like it's almost a little deceptive, right? It sounds on the surface like one type of song, but I think the themes that are embedded in the lyrics are uh, sort of demand a little bit more contemplation. And I think in that sense, there's a similarity to a lot of Bowie songs.
Well, that's a really high compliment, and thank you. And yeah, I think that's what we want. I think we do that sonically. I think Sandy's really good
Yeah,
at that, creating music that you can listen to the song multiple times and notice something different going on with the production. I certainly do, even when we're recording. And I think lyrically, hopefully the songs make sense. Um, but my dream world would be for someone to sit down with a pen and print it out lyrics and like be able to mark it up and find something in there to get curious about and to have to choose how to interpret. Because that's for me what makes music
yeah.
really exciting. So that's I think always, even with a cover where the lyrics are already there, I think, that's really important to be able to do.
Well, I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to do that with Lexi Loves Me on the blog. So as a lead up to the post of this
Mm,
interview. So so
thank
let's
you.
talk about Queen Anne. So before you released your first single, you put out an FAQ, which was sort of tongue in cheek, which I thought was brilliant because how do you put out an FAQ before there could possibly be FAQs? So yeah.
Yeah. I actually think those were infrequently asked questions. Um, I think,
Well,
you know,
infrequently asked because the band hadn't
right,
put anything out yet.
right, we didn't exist. There were no questions to ask. And I think that's kind of because we're still so new and we've put out so little so far. I mean, we're 3 songs in. That's, maybe 10 minutes of information, a little bit less. And I think I'll speak for myself, but I think we're both kind of enjoying living in that sort of space of ambiguity of
Yeah.
like, what exactly is this project gonna be? I think, I have a very sort of specific sense of humor that I've enjoyed bringing into both the lyrics and also, like interviews I've done. And I think if every video we post and every song is just a little bit more information to kind of bring this thing into focus. So I think what the infrequently asked questions are is almost like, to me it's like this blurry object in the distance and you're just starting to make like, oh, is that a shape over there? And then it's like, oh, it's a band and now they have a song. And my goal is to kind of to make this something that doesn't feel like, oh, there's something over here and there's something over there. It's like there's this one thing and it's just getting sharper the more we put out there is kind of how I would hope
Yeah.
that would go.
Yeah. I want to sort of explore that. One of the questions that you had in that was, is Queen Anne a stage name? And you established right out of the gates that it's not, but you had to be aware that that would be a thought that you will be mistaken for Queen Anne, right? So was that deliberate? Is it's like a Ziggy character where there's the blurring of, the stage
Ooh.
persona and reality?
Ziggy Stardust was like 100% the inspiration. And I didn't feel so bad because that was taken from Iggy Pop. So I was like,
Yeah.
it's part of a lineage. I think I find it very liberating, especially because I do other things. Like I'm an actor, I'm studying sociology right now. It's like the person that is like Katie Silverman is like not the same as the musical entity Queen Anne that, is both me and Sandy. And Sandy has a very different musical background and like life background from what I do. And like Queen Anne is kind of this like this thing that's the product of all of that. And that's not me, but I
Yeah.
wanted it to be a persona that I could slip into and that there was ambiguity in. I imagine a world where it's possible for me and Queen Anne to publicly disagree about something. Um,
Yeah. That would be
The
fascinating.
truth, actually, the truth, John, is that I'm Queen Anne. So
Yeah.
Mm,
Well,
we joked about that. It
so
shows like who's Queen and who's Anne. I think that's that's what's up
that
for
is
debate.
hilarious. So Sandy, acknowledging that there's a limited amount of promotional material at this point, you haven't appeared in any of it. Katie is the face. Is
Right.
that a deliberate strategy?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, no, I just think Katie is prettier than I am. No, I think I don't really know how to answer that. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna kind of let this kind of play
Well,
out
well,
naturally. I don't really need to be, you know, I love being the musician, you know, I love
yeah.
being the producer and the co-creator of Queen Anne. I don't necessarily need to be on every billboard, or if any, but you know, yeah.
But before we started recording, we very briefly were talking about how the music industry has changed, even during the time of, your professional experience. How do you work together? Do you have to be in the same place?
Yes,
You
Yeah,
for
do,
me,
yeah,
for me,
yeah,
yes. You know,
for
I
me.
as you know, Katie's still obviously she's in school. I'm in LA, and I'll just I don't get enough of Katie. You know, I wish she was here a lot more so we can do a lot more stuff. But we do. I'm not a really big creator of long distance. I need to I need to be in a room with someone to understand.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think, there's no reason I couldn't write a song and then like send
yeah,
him what I'd written and he could, make a track for it, or the other way around, that he couldn't make
Mm.
a track and send it to me and I could write over it. But that would be like Sandy making a track and me writing a song. Like that wouldn't be a Queen Anne
Yeah,
song. Like that's
I
something that happens when we're in the room.
I think what
yeah.
Katie and I do really well is we actually work really fast.
Hmm.
And that's we don't we try not to overthink things, and so when we're working really fast it's a lot easier for her to be in the room so we can immediately bounce ideas. This emailing back and forth and ideas back and forth, it's just it's a little tedious for me to be doing something like that with Annie, with Katie.
Yeah.
Slip, no, just kidding.
Uh, so what happens in the room? I myself am not a musician, and I'm asking this question in the back of my mind. I'm thinking of the Peter Jackson documentary, Get Back, about the Beatles,
Mm,
which showed the Beatles in a room together, and literally we see them creating songs.
yeah,
What actually happens when you two are in the room?
that's exactly what happens,
It's exactly like that.
just like
Yeah.
the Beatles. Yeah.
Except to be honest, I feel like it's a lot of me sitting on a couch. Like the thing is I'm very cerebral in the way that I work. Like you will not find me like standing at the microphone just like figuring things out. I think that's true when I'm writing my own lyrics, and it's also true with a cover like Let's Dance, trying to make really intentional choices about like how do we want to use this song, to like what angle do we want to portray this song from. And so, and I think like Sandy will pick up a guitar and he'll just like play something, and I will communicate things to Sandy that should not be comprehensible to any human. I'll be like, what if it sounded a little more indoors, but then it was the future, and like he'll play that. So, but I will be sitting like hunched over my phone, typing lyrics in my notes app for probably what feels like a really long time, Sandy. I don't know. Um, I don't know what you're doing while I'm doing that.
Yeah,
And then
yeah. No,
yeah,
it's not that long.
and then
It's not that long.
I'll stand up and we'll go to the microphone, and I think that's actually where we're doing the most collaboratively is on the vocal performance. I think that's almost, even though I'm the one singing, I think that's like 50-50, because I don't sing that way when I'm not working with Sandy, and his producing of my voice and the the way that we talk about the performance while I'm actually singing is, I think, something like about this collaboration that you probably wouldn't like think of, but that's really really kind of like deeply mutual.
Yeah. The way you're describing it makes me think less of the Beatles and more like Brian Eno and working with Bowie
Mm.
with the oblique strategies
There you
and
go.
just, yeah,
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So, wow, that's that is very interesting. You've described Queen Anne as a concept and an ideal. What's the concept and what's the ideal?
Queen Anne.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's not reducible. I think that's what I always want. Like I never want to write a song that could have been a short story.
yeah.
And I also never want to write a song that could have been a sentence. Like if I can say that the song is about, you know, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I could have said that sentence out loud. And if I could say the song is about, and then I could write 650 words and tell you everything that happened. So in the same way, I don't want Queen Anne to be as a persona, as a band, as an artist project, whatever you want to call it, is something that you could describe in a sentence, like they make this kind of music,
Hmm.
or something you could describe, in a paragraph of like if you have all of these pieces of information, even if you've never heard the songs, you get the point. And so when I say it's a concept, I really do want it to be its own concept. Like I feel like that's not a good answer, but yeah, without listening to, that's what I also mean when I say I want it to come into focus. Like there is this completely abstract thing. When you haven't released any songs, the band is completely abstract. I mean, it's just like a form out in the universe. And every bit of substance we give to it, it'll eventually reach the point where there is none of that ideal left, and it's taken shape. Um, but I love the idea, and I think this is completely, Bowie's influence on me as well, and like the way that I think about music is because of him. But Bowie to me always felt like there was something that was either not of this world or not of this time or both, and he was sort of like bringing it to light. And I want it to feel like Queen Anne is this entity, and like we're gradually, making it sort of this very real grounded thing that does things like post on TikTok and, release songs. In a perfect world, none of that would happen. There would just be the concept. But, you have to release real songs and make it less of an ideal every time you do so. Does that make any sense at all?
I think Plato is like from the
Mm.
grave is applauding. He's no, it makes total sense, but I want to challenge you on something because you're talking about the concept, you're talking about sort of a blurry vision of the future. I get the sense that you have a more concrete vision of where you want to go, and your presentation is not just you're not just in a coffee house singing songs and seeing where it's going to go. Like you just mentioned, you've got a TikTok presence. The videos are a different type of art form. It's not just singing. There's a production value to your videos that are, I think, uncommon for a brand new band. And it seems like you have a rollout plan to like I really get the sense that Queen Anne is exploding onto the scene in a way that I really haven't seen with too many other bands that I've encountered. So am I right about that, or is it more one step at a time than it seems?
I think I'm glad it looks like that.
Yeah,
I think it's both. I think it is because Sandy and I are coming from a place of this vision that it feels that way.
yeah,
Um, I almost think that is the object in the distance. This thing that feels like it's already a real thing is because it's there, you know?
yeah.
And even though the album hasn't been released or like written or finished, it is there, you know? It's what we're working toward. And I think Sandy and I really solidly know, both who we are as musicians and also what Queen Anne is and what it means for something to be a Queen Anne song and what it means um for like for something to be like visually in the aesthetic of Queen Anne. And so there's always trial and error. We have a
Yeah.
lot of, not a lot, we have a couple abandoned songs that are like, oh no. So there is the trial and error as well. But I think in terms of what we're putting out, we are being very intentional about you know, what we're doing is is almost like a sculpture you're creating, and we want to just shave off a little piece at a time, and that's definitely like a step at a time. We are starting from this like large chunk of like I don't know what this is, but you still have to be really intentional, I think, as you're kind of shaving it down to make it, exactly the shape that you want. We're not just we're not throwing spaghetti, but we also don't have the recipe 100% worked out. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah. Sandy, when you started getting into music, um how was the way music was introduced different than it is today?
Radio
Yeah.
for me, like for some reason, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I don't listen to much radio as much as I did. Um, I also had these kind of huge vinyls coming. Obviously, it's been back for a while, but vinyl records were really big when I'm a child of the '80s.
Yeah.
So I remember, the big hunky dory Bowie vinyl album with this awesome figure, um, and radio. And now I'm just kind of now I just kind of listen to my own. I'm still kind of in this bubble of what I listen to. I just kind of just listen to what I want, and so in that sense, it's a little. I wish I had. I wish I listened to more kind of. I guess you don't really. I don't know. The radio is it's kind of a strange thing, but yeah, I'm just still listening to kind of my own stuff that I grew up with.
Well, radio is a great example of a medium that sort of created a kind of shared experience. And the other one I'm thinking of, when Let's Dance came out, that was the heyday of MTV.
Oh yeah.
Everybody saw that video
Oh yeah.
right? But that's not the world we live in today.
Right.
And how do you penetrate a marketplace that is so curated, where, like you just said, you listen to what you want, right? How do you
Yeah.
break through if you're a new band? I think I see a strategy with Queen Anne, but what is that strategy? What are you trying to do to be seen and to be heard?
God, John, I wish I knew the answer to that.
Yeah.
Um,
If we knew we'd do it.
I think again, we're just gonna. Yeah, no, that's really hard to answer, John. That's a great
Yeah.
question. Can I get back
Well,
to you on that?
you can. I'll tell you what I thought that I'll tell you what
Please.
I thought that I was seeing, and
Yeah.
I'll bring it back to Bowie.
Yeah.
There's a line that is attributed, I don't know if it's apocryphal, to his former manager, Tony DeFries, where
Oh,
he supposedly said, if you want to be a star, act like a star. And Bowie himself, if you think about Ziggy Stardust, before that, even albums like Hunky Dory, which today are regarded as a great album, it wasn't really a
sure.
hit at the time, but Ziggy Stardust was.
Oh
And
yeah.
the song Star sort of lays out his whole plan. And he repeats this word, star, in that album in different contexts.
Oh
But,
yeah.
right? So it's like he was, and I would read about how he would drive around New York City in limousines and act like he's somebody to be paid attention to. Katie, I get that feeling from you, right? I mean, between the social media, the videos, even I'm looking at the Queen Anne website, and you have critical reviews, multiple critical reviews of your first couple of singles that it's uncommon. I talk to a lot of different bands, and I don't see that type of multimedia presentation that I'm seeing with you guys.
I think part of that is we've been really lucky and really fortunate, and I think there are a lot of people out there who who are insanely talented who just don't get listened to, just no one ever hears the songs. I think the fact that anyone's hearing the songs or paying attention is still hard for me to wrap my own head around. I don't think, I think the extent to which Queen Anne is a persona, I do think is helpful for that
Yeah.
and for me. Um, because, you know, I was the other night I'm taking this like biology class which I shouldn't have done, and we're learning about photosynthesis, which I thought was really simple, and I have this like 200-page textbook reading, and my like eyes are watering, and I'm listening to K-Rock locals only, waiting for my song to come on with my friends, and the song comes on, and the thing I'm doing is like so not glamorous. I've eaten like half a tub of lactose-free ice cream and I'm gonna fail my quiz. But like Queen Anne's like having this huge moment. And I think for me, like if I went out on stage or if I went out on social media and I, was the girl who still didn't 100% understand the Calvin cycle, I think that would be very difficult. And so I do think that kind of like separation between like Queen Anne lives this like Queen Anne is this really glamorous thing. And I think being able to slip into that and kind of have fun with that, and make that world and build it out, um, has maybe been the thing that's giving sort of this impression, of like this thing that's real, that's solid, that's like an artist that feels more established than I think either of us have any right to like think that Queen Anne actually is, because we released 3 songs, and kind of ditch the like the everyday of, I go to school, I come home, I play piano, I try to write, I do my homework, I think like taking just like sucking all of that out of it and having just like the Queen Anne be there, is maybe the thing you're trying to pinpoint. I don't know.
Yeah.
But neither of us have ever talked about that, is what's funny. Like we've never, like that's not an intentional. We don't talk a lot about like marketing or branding. I think we do
Yeah.
things we think are cool, and we hope that other people do too.
Yeah. Well, for sure. I think a lot of people do, and the more they find out, they will.
Mhm.
You've alluded to the the distinction between the ideal and you just use the word solid, right? So you've got this idea of this concept coming together into something that doesn't yet exist. Is that and is that a goal, or do you always want there to be um, a platonic ideal that's never achieved?
I think that's very difficult, and I think that brings up the question of legacy.
Yeah.
And I think even now, part of the reason why we're able to talk about Bowie the way we do is because there is, I think, still that ideal. I think it would be very difficult, even if you sat down and listened to every David Bowie song in order, you would still be missing something. And I,
Yeah.
I love that feeling. On the other hand, there are totally bands. The Rolling Stones come to mind as being very solid, like as having really like fully taken shape as something that is, just undeniable.
Yeah.
And I think that both poles are really, really intriguing to me. I think the fun artistically is enjoying that tension sort of
Yeah.
um between those 2 points, but I think certainly not for a long time do I aspire to be Mick Jagger. I think I've got a few years on that. So, and in the meantime, I do think the fun is in peeling back the curtain, and I imagine this like very absurd stage that just like goes on and then like takes a turn and then goes underground, and I think that's the fun of it.
Yeah. You're you're not going to believe me, but I was thinking about Mick Jagger before you mentioned his name, because I was thinking about a clip that I've seen from something like 1963 where he was saying, "Yeah, this is just a thing we're doing. We can't possibly last longer than maybe 6 months." And
Mhm.
and I really feel like I'm talking to you guys at the beginning of something, and I know you both, you come together with considerable accomplishments before Queen Anne formed, but this feels like a project that's on solid ground and might be around for a little bit.
I really hope
Thanks,
so, 'cause I'm
John.
studying sociology, so I don't really have a viable career otherwise.
Yeah, that's
I
excellent.
want to talk about that.
Sociology.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I have no idea what that is.
Most people don't. Mm.
So, well, let me just ask you a couple of final questions. Um, we sort of danced around the idea of an album. Is it your goal to come out with an album, and when might we see that? And then you also mentioned about some live appearances. Are you planning a tour? Your website has a tour tab that's blank right now. Where can we see Queen Anne in the future?
I'll take album first. I think, yes, that's a goal. I
Yeah.
think it's very important to us before we release something bigger like that, that there be um, people who are listening. I think singles are a really effective way to kind of get people's attention. I think an album is a good way to keep people's attention.
Mm,
I think I don't want to take, you know, half a dozen or a dozen songs that we feel really strongly about and put them all out there so that people can listen to three of them. So I think it's very difficult because we do have a lot of songs stored up. The conversation is always like, which of these are we going to release next? And it's very tempting to just want to, put them all together and do this bigger project and like really dig into that. I think like musically and aesthetically, and from a storytelling perspective. But I think we're holding off until the moment feels right for something like that. And then for a tour, I think same thing, but that's something I would really love to do. I've been playing a couple shows. I was just in Nashville, playing a She's the Music and Femco show at Anzie Blue, which was just so insanely cool. And the other women playing in that show were so talented, and it was one of the most surreal moments of my entire life, being on that stage. And so, and I played a couple shows in LA over the summer. I think we we definitely want to keep playing live because you think you just connect with an audience in such a completely different way. And so, no tour dates yet. They'll be on the website when
Yeah,
they're there. But I definitely think in the next few months or so, really starting to make that both more geographically widespread and also more frequent is a kind of like a next steps goal for the band right now.
yeah. Well, I'm hoping you do one in Boston because I could go.
That's very convenient.
oh,
Yeah.
That's very convenient for me. So you would think.
Yeah.
I just gotta finish working out the Calvin cycle, and then I'm there.
Not something I often hear from a band member, but
that's
I
awesome.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think there might be a future song there.
let me close by asking a silly question that I ask everybody at the end of my interviews, which is, what is your favorite Bowie song and album? And I'm asking two of you, so there could be four different answers.
Four different answers.
I'll go first on that.
Mhm.
Life on Mars.
Yeah.
I mean, that shaped so much of me. I can't even tell you. Life on Mars. I mean, it was just. I must have listened to that song a gazillion times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I did this before I started the blog. When Bowie died, I did a song a day tribute on Facebook, which is what led to the blog. And that's the song I chose to end the 1 year project with.
Awesome.
And it made people cry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
makes people cry, I should say. Yeah. So Katie, that bought enough time for you.
Oh, were you gonna do favorite song and favorite album, or was that
Yeah.
your? Okay.
I still need an album from Sandy, so
So yeah,
Oh
my
yeah.
song,
Oh
yeah.
I'm locked in on song. I'm actually debating album more because I think like best album and favorite album are different questions. But favorite song for sure, Space Oddity. Like I
Yeah.
think that's one of my favorite songs ever. And in terms of like the full potential of music as a medium to tell a story lyrically in terms of the vocal performance, to do something sonically that's completely creative and and complicates the story further. And I also just I can't listen to that song without crying. And
Mm,
um yeah, it's not it's like one of my favorite stories ever. Like
Yeah.
it's really one of the things that like I think that's what music can be and what I'm always like aspiring to.
oh yeah.
Yeah. And now for the albums.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Hunky Dory.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But am I right, John, in thinking there was a Bowie before Space Oddity? It was called just David Bowie, wasn't it?
Yes.
There were two
Yeah.
David Bowies, I think. I think there was like a
So the first one was his debut in 1967. It was called David Bowie. It's still,
Right.
that's, if you buy it today, it's still called David Bowie. But the Space Oddity album that we know of as Space Oddity today was also originally released as
That's
David
right.
Bowie. Yeah.
my favorite, I think my favorite, and I think favorite is different from best here, but would be Diamond Dogs. I think
Ooh,
both on the I think mostly like an aesthetic thing and a storytelling thing as well, but
Yeah.
also on just like an album that is fun to listen to, that I'll put on, to feel like a character in a movie.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and also just as like an example of like a real like artistic like freedom and reinvention. I don't know, I love that album.
that's right.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. This has been terrific. I really can't wait to hear what comes next from you guys.
Thanks for
Uh,
having us, John.
Thank you so
and
much.
listen, when you reach Mick Jagger status, remember this show and please come back.
Oh, we will.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Thank you.